some of you guys may know, we have to do more stuff to this. We pulled the V6 and we put a 4-cylinder in, but we're not done the swap yet. These are V6 brakes, these are V6 calipers, these are V6 bearings. This all has to go. What we got to do is we got to basically pull this entire spindle off. Throw it in the garbage. I'm not even going to undo these axle nuts because, as you guys remember, I just cut these axles with a torch because I don't run V6s and I have like 5 or 6 axles already saved up, so don't really need any more. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the caliper off. We're going to zip tie the caliper up because I don't want to lose all the brake fluid yet. Then we're going to undo the two 22 mil bolts holding on the strut to the spindle. We're going to undo the 18 mil tie rod nut, take the tie rod off, and then when that's like that, what we'll do is we'll undo these 3 bolts down here that hold the bottom ball joint on. Once those are off, we can lift this spindle right out and throw it in the trash. There's probably a use for this spindle somewhere, but not to me. And then once we do all that, then we'll reinstall the 4-cylinder spindle. Oh, a lot of work. Sometimes I just change the lower control arm, sometimes I don't. When we're up here, we're going to take out all this plastic in the inner fender well, and then pretty much go from there. I've already set it on fire a couple times, so seems to be about par for the course, eh there, bud? Just giving you a hard time. Now that did not take that long to do. It was actually a pretty quick process. I think it maybe took me 5 to 7 minutes. What we're going to do now is this car here, like almost every Toyota I buy, has got a very thick undercoating on the frame. Let's see if we can peel that off. As you can see how thick that undercoating is. I have to put some steel behind the strut. I'm allowed 6 or 8 inches. I'm not exactly sure. There's 2 companies here in Ontario. Actually, there used to be 3. So one would allow 3 inches, one would allow 6 inches, and one would allow 8 inches of 2x2 behind your struts. So the company that was 3 inches has actually closed their doors. Sad story, but they do not exist. Another Derby company, not existing anymore. But all we have left now is the 6 and the 8, and I always get confused on which one is which company. So I'm going to have to do a quick read on the rules to see which one it is, 6 or 8, and then we will get all this undercoating cleaned off with a wire wheel and some sunglasses, safety glasses. And then we'll read the rules to see which one we're allowed to put in. So I checked the rules, and it said I was allowed 6 inches behind the strut, so I didn't think I had any steel, but then I found some steel that was 9 inches long. I cut it down to 6. I welded it in. I got good welds on both sides. What we're going to do now is we're going to install the 4-cylinder spindle. Yes, I just did look at the ground and see this 4-cylinder and a 6-cylinder beside themselves. I'm trying to figure out which one was which really quickly. Stay while I can reach down here and grab a nut. Just going to finger tighten everything. And then tighten her down. Now before you guys ask, yes, I did check. I checked to make sure this bottom ball joint was good. The thing's been through Heat and Feature in Gravenhurst. Feature full size in Mount Forest. Heat, Consolation, and Feature in List Tool. So some of these parts might be getting a little bit worn out. So I'm just going to double check everything before I put it all back together. Making sure that the parts I'm putting it in are actually good parts. I've cut this ball joint past the adjuster sleeve so that if I do wreck this ball joint at the demolition derby, I can swap it out. Now, some people use pickle forks. I do like pickle forks, but right now I have a brass hammer. One swift smack with a brass hammer, and you can take out your tie rods. Now, the reason why we use a brass hammer is brass is a much softer steel than mild. So, I'm pretty sure tie rods are actually hardened. But anyway, it's a much softer steel so that the brass will bend before you'll damage the threads. And that's what you want. You don't want damaged threads, right? You know what I just realized? Just realized we didn't put an axle in it. Don't laugh at me. I've done this plenty of times before. So, let's take this back out. Let's put an axle into this thing. You might need this to move around, eh? Now we have an axle in this. I'm a big fan of anti-seize, and the reason for that is usually when I put stuff like this together, I'm going to take it apart 2 or 3 times in the future. So a little bit of anti-seize goes a long way. Like that. Get that top one. Undo the ball joint quickly so that I can do the brakes nice and easy. So I got a way of doing this. I switched to my smaller gun so I don't have such a high torque impact. What I'm going to do is I'm going to undo the brake line to the caliper. Okay, really 14 now. I thought it was a 13, but it turns out to be a 14. So, what you need to do is you need to keep this little brass fitting. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to do this one. Put this brass fitting on. Put it right into there. Probably a lot more kajiggas than I wanted to do to a piece of delicate brake part, but she's kajiggaed on there. I don't know the torque of that. I'm going to say about 30 kajiggas at setting number 2. Now the last step is just put the tie rod back on. That's it. We're done. Now there's one thing I did forget. Oh! And that's the axle nut. The axle nut is pretty important. Keeps your axle in place, so make sure you put that on there. Of course you're going to see me put some anti-seize, just because that's how I like to roll. Now this is 1 inch and 3/16 on these. I do have 1 inch and 3/16 on a 1/2 inch drive, but it's not deep enough to get tight enough. So that is this side complete. I say we go and do the other side. So now that the driver's side is done, we're going to do the passenger side. Pretty much everything the same. Like we're going to take the caliper, put the caliper off to the sides, change out the spindle. We're going to leave the strut in place. And then we're going to put our strut block in behind. So it's pretty much the exact same as the other side. So let's get going. My camera died while I was putting this side back together, so I went in the house, charged it. Here we are the next day. I finished putting it all back together. Don't worry, I put the axle in this side the first time. And then from that, we just put everything else on. Everything's all together underneath here. We put our transmission cooler back in up there. Did buy new fittings for down here, but these are too big, so I'm going to have to get some smaller hoses set up. Not a big deal. What I'm going to try to do this time is I'm going to try to pass all these transmission cooler lines in behind the shifter and underneath the starter. That way they don't get cut. Even though it kind of looks a little sharp. But just like... Screw it. You guys understand. Not going to get upset with that. But everything is switched to 4-cylinder now. I just don't want to fire this thing up until I have that transmission lines hooked up. I was nice. You guys are going to laugh at me. But look what I bought. An oil filter. I bought an oil filter for this thing. You know what? This motor here, when I bought it, it was a good running motor. It's been through 3 different demolition derbies and a total of 9 heats. So I think I'm going to do an oil change. I'm going to do a transmission fluid change, but she's a little brown. She's not low, but she's a little brown. So we're going to do an oil change to it coming up. But other than that, I think this is coming along great. We're going to start on the cage in tomorrow's video and all that fun stuff, but oh well. Well, thanks everybody for watching. Oh, hold on. Before I say that, look at this header tip I put on there. It actually is the factory tip, or the tip that came on this car. And yes, this is just the tip joke. I'm just joking. It slid right inside there. I put 1 tech screw. I like the way it looks. Let's see how this thing looks with the hood down. I think that looks fancy. Do you guys think that looks fancy? I think it looks weird, but it adds a nice little chrome touch and it doesn't affect how the hood opens. So I'm pretty happy. And on that note, we're going to end today's video. So thanks everybody for watching. Be sure to come back tomorrow. We'll get a whole bunch more videos up here shortly. But thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you back here tomorrow.